Hello, welcome back to Live from Knowhere, your podcast for all things Marvel and cinema. I'm your host, Brandon.
I'm Joe, and today we're going to be talking about Sony and Marvel, specifically their agreement to bring Spider-Man to the MCU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess we could start off with the Spider-Man character. He's, in my opinion, arguably the most popular superhero of all time. There's a case for others, certainly, but I think he's certainly one of the, if not one of the most popular superheroes of all time.
I think your argument's going to be strongest if you just add Marvel character. Mm-hmm. I think you have some arguments with Superman.
For sure.
Wonder Woman. But I think definitely in terms of Marvel, he's Marvel's most iconic character. And I think Sony's done a decent job. I mean, I think people are very particular about Spider-Man, and part of that is nostalgia of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
But I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I saw a good tweet about it, that he might not be the best Peter Parker, he might not be the best Spider-Man, but he's the best combination of the two.
Yeah, that's fair. And of course the arguments go back to what was it? People always said Tobey was a good Parker, but wasn't really a good Spider-Man. Garfield was a good Spider-Man, but wasn't a good Peter Parker. And then Tom Holland kind of brought the two of them together.
Yeah, and I think he plays the youthful part of Spider-Man really well.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard for, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire.
Certainly Tobey Maguire.
They were just a little too old.
Yeah.
But I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man plays youthful high schooler very well.
Yeah. So, and I had it kind of pulled up, but so Marvel, it appears that Spider-Man first made an appearance all the way back in 1962, so he's been around for a long time. Many people grew up with him and knew who he was, and then Sony came along and bought the character in 1999, which I believe is when Marvel was selling off a lot of their characters to try to make back some money. Hulk went to Universal, and Spider-Man went to Sony, and then the MCU started to get big again, and they're like, oh, okay, we're going to go ahead and take all our characters back. But Universal and Sony were like, no, we know how popular this character is. We can share him with you, but we're going to need some certain rights.
Yeah, and I think the big thing to remember about Sony's agreement with Marvel about Spider-Man is that it's exclusive to Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. We have the whole, I don't even know what they call it, the Sony Cinematic Universe, where they have Venom, and now they're going to have Kraven. They have the glorious Madam Web. Those are, characters that I think a lot of people, especially Venom, would like to see in the MCU. We've had Venom in the MCU, but if you're looking at the latest Venom trailer, he's
When was Venom in the MCU?
The post-credits.
Oh, yeah, the little...
Yeah, the little drop of Venom.
Oh, wait, was it the little drop, or did they actually show Venom in a post-credits?
So he went to the MCU in the Venom Let There Be Carnage post-credits scene.
Okay.
I remember texting you right after that.
Yeah.
And then he didn't do anything in No Way Home. And then he went back, but he left a little piece of him. But in the latest trailer for Venom The Last Dance, they show a scene where...
Were they cleaning it up or something?
They're cleaning it up.
Yeah.
And, the character or the actor... I don't really know what character he's playing, but the actor who helps clean him up is in the MCU already. So I don't really know if that's supposed to be them cleaning up in the MCU. And for some reason, that character has a twin that happens to be Mordo, or what's happening there. Also, the bartender is the same actor. He's the guy from Ted Lasso, the one that just goes, I love football.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So there's a lot of confusion with that, but I'm sure Marvel would love to have Venom in the MCU.
Yeah.
But they have to get a separate agreement to get that done.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what Joe's kind of talking about kind of begins this, entanglement, I guess, of Spider-Man in the MCU, how that came to be, what Sony was kind of doing with Spider-Man, and how they came to have this messy relationship. So if I'm correct, it started, Andrew Garfield was Sony's, right? Was Amazing Spider-Man Sony, right?
Yeah, they've all been Sony, I believe.
Oh, even the Tobey Maguire.
Yes.
Okay. And then something happened where they were like, okay, we'll let you use Spider-Man. And of course, his first appearance was Civil War, which was a huge deal at the time. And Sony's attempted to build this universe while Marvel has been using Tom Holland in their own universe as well. And I don't feel like Sony's done a good job of building it out because they've had a lot of flops for sure.
Madam Web. I love me some Madam Web.
But I mean, I love the Venom movies. I just wish I knew what was happening. Like, I don't feel like they can have a Sony verse and an MCU verse coexist at the same time.
So what's interesting about the Sony Spider-Verse right now is they've seemingly had a Spider-Man Peter Parker problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure it was Morbius.
Uh-huh.
You had the hint towards, I don't remember which one it was. It was either Andrew Garfield. I think it was Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
You had the poster that was in the trailer that referenced and seemingly insinuated that he was in that universe with Morbius.
Yeah.
Come to the movie, that poster is no longer there.
Yeah.
And then you have the latest trailer for Venom Let There Be Carnage.
Uh-huh.
Or not Venom Let There Be,
Last
Dance. That now has a 10-year-old Peter Parker in it. So you have a young Peter Parker. So I think Sony's Spider-Verse has had all these villains that they're seemingly building out as like Sinister Six.
Yeah.
But they have nobody to fight them. And I think thinking about, okay, if we gave Peter Parker to Marvel, Miles Morales is the next best thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think some would argue that at this current moment, he might be more beloved because of the Into the Spider-Verse movies.
Which were huge successes.
So I don't think it's a step back. If anything, you might be a level above Marvel just because of how much the public wants to have Miles Morales in live action.
Yeah.
So it seems like, okay, let's do a Miles Morales will be our Spider-Man in this universe, and Marvel can have Peter Parker. They have not done that, and so it's a little weird, a little wonky, because you have a 10-year-old Peter Parker.
I did not catch that.
Yeah.
When was that evident?
It's kind of
Is it like hinted at?
It's kind of hinted at. So if you look at the trailer, there is a 10-year-old boy with, I think, his mother and father, maybe his mother, or maybe it's Aunt May, I don't know. I didn't really catch who it was, in the trailer being protected by Venom.
Uh-huh.
So that is kind of it at its baseline. Now, on Twitter, I keep up with the leakers. And so, before the trailer came out, there was a rumor going around that Peter Parker, a 10-year-old Peter Parker, was going to be in the movie, and Venom was going to be, at first, trying to kill him or capture him because of his weird thing with Peter Parker once he saw them when J. Jonah Jameson exposed him in the post-credit scene. So now he knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So the thought was that Venom's going to find his Peter Parker and try to take him out. And eventually he's going to have a turn that makes him the lethal protector. And so that's a little bit of leaks, a little bit of the trailer. There is the 10-year-old in the trailer, so it seems like the leaks are correct.
Mm-hmm.
But Sony has a Spider-Man universe with no Spider-Man.
Yeah. So that's obviously a huge problem. So let's see. So what is the Spider-Verse, the Sony verse right now, as it is? So you got Venom.
You have Morbius.
Who live action is probably their most successful films, I would think.
Yes.
So the Venom movies, which I personally enjoyed, I thought they were great. I just didn't know how the tie-ins. So who else did you have? You had
Morbius.
Morbius, yeah. You had Kraven the Hunter, which isn't out yet, but that's supposed to be part of it.
Out. You have within the Morbius movie, you have Vulture. If we're talking about Sinister Six,
and was that
same actor? Apparently different version of the
makes no sense to me. I don't understand what they're doing with that.
So, and then you have Madam Web, and I believe that's it.
And there was a post-credit scene that teased Scorpion.
Yes, but that was MCU.
Oh, was it?
That was MCU.
Was it Homecoming?
Yeah, so that was after he goes to prison. Okay. Vulture meets Scorpion,
which is like one of like 10 post-credit scenes that Marvel has not done anything with yet.
So going back to the Sony Spider-Man problem, the reason I think they have Adrian Toomes being played by the same actor, it's like we can point at that Vulture and be like, oh, this is connecting with the MCU. Let's go see it. People are going to go see it.
Yeah.
And you also, that's why you have like the posters with Andrew Garfield and all this stuff. It's a marketing ploy.
Like, what are you doing with it?
But part of it is also that part of the agreement with Marvel is Sony has to produce a Spider-Man related movie every 5 years and 9 months.
Actually? Yeah. Like in the contract?
Yeah.
Otherwise, what?
Otherwise, they lose the rights. So they have to pump out a movie basically every 6 years. And it's the same.
But doesn't have to have Spider-Man.
It doesn't have to have Spider-Man in it. It has to be a Spider-Man adjacent character. So that's why they're pushing out Morbius and all these other characters. And that's also why sometimes I feel like they can end up being a little sloppy, is because it's like, well, we just need to do this to keep our rights.
Yeah.
Because as much as people like to bag on the Sony movies, Venom makes money. Venom makes a lot of money. But also, they need to keep the rights because they need to be able to control Peter Parker, Spider-Man, to make that money with Marvel, because they get a whole bunch of the money. And for these Spider-Man solo movies, they control distributing. So that means...
Who, Sony?
Sony controls distributing. Marvel controls distributing and everything when it comes to Spider-Man in a spin-off, or like as a cameo or a side character. So Civil War, in the Avengers movies, Marvel's able to control everything around that.
So, but doesn't Marvel get most of, like, somebody gets most of the box office, and then somebody gets like everything else, like merchandise and stuff, right?
Yeah. I forget
who's who. I think Sony might be the box office.
I believe so.
Marvel gets like everything else.
I believe Marvel controls most of their merchandising profits.
Yeah.
So that's why they need to keep Spider-Man and pump out some of these maybe not as well acclaimed movies like Morbius and Madam Web, because they just need to keep the rights. That's, going to keep the money flowing. And when you have billion-dollar movies, it is really successful for them and doesn't really incentivize them to change it all. And I think you've heard stories about, Marvel wanted to do something with Spider-Man in his solo movies, and Sony being like, no. Like, the big rumor on Spider-Man 4 is that Marvel wants to do a more grounded, street-level Spider-Man with the repercussions of what happened in No Way Home. But Sony wants them to include Andrew Garfield and the other Spider-Man again to kind of capture that hype.
But why? Because if they're building up this whole universe, I can't tell if, like, they're building up this universe and it's going to be like, okay, we're going to use Tom Holland's Spider-Man, bring him over here, and we're going to have this universe where he's a part of it, and then MCU Spider-Man is its own thing. Or are they just trying to build this universe and then kind of just like, here you go, Marvel, do something with our universe as well? I'm not sure.
That was the rumor, kind of. I remember, when was it? I was at the Getty Museum, I think, when this happened. when the news came out that was like, Sony and Marvel are having this big fight.
Oh, yeah.
And Spider-Man is no longer going to be in the MCU, and Sony's going to take his rights, and Sony's going to throw him in their universe, and everybody was like, what is happening with Spider-Man? There's no way Spider-Man goes out like this. And then Tom Holland came out and said that like he would play Spider-Man no matter what universe it was. So it was like, okay, now Sony has kind of a lot of leverage because they're not going to lose Tom Holland.
Yeah.
And I remember like refreshing all the time. And I was like looking daily for news on the MCU.
Yeah.
So I don't think Sony would be opposed to throwing Tom Holland in their MCU, especially when Tom Holland said he wants to play Spider-Man until he's like 40.
Yeah.
But I just think Sony realizes that no matter what they do with Spider-Man, it's not going to be as good as what Marvel does.
Exactly. Why did Sony end up using Marvel in the first place? Because they basically said, we own Spider-Man, but you guys are much better at doing the superhero movie stuff than us. Mm-hmm. You guys go ahead and use it, and we'll share profits. And then it got messy because Sony's was like kind of like Fantasyland, like, oh, we're building our universe. This is going to be just as good as Marvel. Let's cut that Marvel out of it completely and just do our own Sony thing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they went to Marvel because they knew Marvel just does Spider-Man movies better.
Yeah, and I think when we are thinking about Sony's failures with the Spider-Man kind of IP, we are solely talking, I think, about live action. Mm-hmm. Because Spider-Verse, I don't know how the same studio that makes Spider-Verse ends up putting out Morbius and Madam Web, because Spider-Verse is so good. And
Spider-Verse is really good and can hold up to almost the best of MCU films, personally.
Yeah, but they also understand some side characters really well. They do Prowler well. They did Doc Ock well. They did a lot of these side characters really well. And now they're trying to build a whole universe out of side characters. So it's like, I don't know how... Whatever's happening in the Sony animation needs to be brought over to their live action.
Yeah.
And so they have successes there, but also Sony and their PS or their PlayStation games. Yeah. Really, I know those are, I've never played them, but they're very...
The Spider-Man games?
They're very highly reviewed.
I played the first Spider-Man, and it lives up to the hype. Certainly.
Yeah, so they've done well with other mediums that just aren't live action movies.
Yeah. And the thing with, and you know, MCU had this problem was, how do you make a good Spider-Man film? Because do you retell the story of, you know, he gets bit by the spider, Uncle Ben dies, so on and so on. Because most people, I feel like, know the main hits of Spider-Man. Or do you do it where there's been a couple really good stories in which basically what Marvel did is, oh, okay, you already know the background. We're not going to explain how Spider-Man came to be and everything. We're just going to talk about how he is now and how he gets integrated into the greater MCU. So that's why I think Marvel did it well, is they just assumed the audience knew everything about Spider-Man already.
Which I think they're right to assume. We talked about at the beginning how he's Marvel's most iconic character. And with that comes some territory where you can assume that people know the basics of Spider-Man. Mm. And I think that is played to Marvel's hand really well. And thinking about some of the critiques that people have about Marvel's Spider-Man, I think they don't really like that he has this mentor role with Iron Man, and then Iron Man died, and now it's with Doctor Strange. Yeah, I've seen a lot of critiques about that. But
I don't get it.
I think when you think about the wider universe, it was such an organic way to bring him into the fold of, like, he's a really smart kid who's, like, doing this vigilante stuff, and Tony Stark as a character is really sly and is kind of almost the Sly Fox of the MCU. So it makes sense for him to recruit him in Civil War. One, because he's like, okay, there's this untapped potential that I can kind of mold into the hero that I wish maybe I started off as. But on the other hand, he's about to be in the midst of civil war with Captain America.
Yeah.
And he knows Captain America is very righteous.
Uh-huh.
And I wouldn't be surprised if part of the reason that Peter Parker got recruited by Iron Man was because Tony believed that Captain America wouldn't fight a kid.
Interesting. I've never considered that before.
I think it was trying to play on his morals a little bit and being like,
I could see that.
Being like, okay, Steve Rogers won't fight a child.
Yeah, and if that plan doesn't work out, then you just have a really awesome superhero on your team.
Yeah. And so I think it was an organic way to do it. And I do understand the critiques of like, okay, we got past this mentorship arc when Tony died, and now we immediately replace him with Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
But again, I have to defend it in saying that, of course, Peter Parker is going to look for a new mentor because Tony was such a big part of his life. He needs something to fill that void, and he looked for it in Mysterio.
Yeah.
He tried to find a new mentor in Mysterio and went awry, but he still needs somebody to fill that void. So it just makes sense. I think going forward in the MCU, we can talk about like that mentorship role and what maybe we wish for the future of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the critiques of him having a mentorship role it doesn't really take away from Spider-Man, as others would like to say it does.
No, I don't think it does either, just because I think it still puts him in that you can't get too mature with him, because I think you always have to bring it back to he's still just a kid.
Yeah.
He's still just a teenager, and I think having that mentor role constantly puts it in check that he is still just a kid, and it adds that element to him that he's not like these adult superheroes. He's just a kid fighting with everyone else, trying to do his best. And kind of like what you were talking about with the mentor, the way I always thought of it was, what did Tony and Strange kind of both have in common? It was that they didn't really have a kid yet, or they hadn't had a kid yet in the universe.
Yeah.
And I think they naturally took on Peter as like being their son in a way, and even Strange, I always took it more as like, man, Tony did this thing for all of us. He followed through like I thought he would. He was not the man I thought he would be. I got to look after this kid because I know how much he meant to Tony.
Yeah, and I think kind of getting ahead a little bit of what I hope for in the future of the MCU Spider-Man is that I want Miles Morales to become Spider-Man in the MCU. And part of that, I think, requires Peter Parker to know how to take that mentorship role.
Yeah.
So I think it's a natural build-up where you have Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and kind of these heroes around Peter, teaching him how to be a good mentor. He learns what he didn't really like and what didn't work for him. He learns a lot about what helped him, and he gets to add his own kind of ideas and his own strategy to being a mentor.
Yeah.
And I think eventually when he becomes a mentor for Miles Morales, we'll look back on that and be like, that's what shaped him. And I think that's something that's really important, is thinking about the decisions now and how they affect the future. Because of Tom Holland really wanting to be Spider-Man for a long, long time, I think you theoretically could be, you know, a 9-movie arc with him where you have the 3-movie high school arc, you have a 3-movie college arc, and then I think you have a 3-movie mentorship arc.
That's never been done before, though.
It hasn't. And the only caveat with that is, at the pace we're moving, Tom Holland is going to be a little old by the time we complete that 9-movie arc. So if we want that to happen, it's going to have to speed up. I imagine that is not exactly how it's going to happen, because I think some of the movies in the mentorship arc is like, this is actually a Miles Morales movie where Peter Parker shows up, or this is an Avengers movie. And so some of them are going to be interchanged.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the next iteration, the next arc for Spider-Man should really focus on him away from the MCU for at least the first movie. I think we have to deal with the repercussions of No Way Home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and while you're talking, I was kind of thinking about where Spider-Man is now in the MCU, which was after No Way Home. Nobody. So he exists, but nobody knows he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Right? So he's still Peter Parker. Like, he can go around and say, hi, I'm Peter Parker, and, mingle with people, but people won't know he's Spider-Man. And so does that mean he can't put on the suit and, like, go around and, like, start getting people to, like, know he's Spider-Man?
So people know who Spider-Man is, and people know who Peter Parker is, or people don't really know who Peter Parker is anymore. So, like, Spider-Man still has his whole thing.
So there's still a Spider-Man that exists.
Yeah. It's not like people are gonna, like, he's gonna go out and people are gonna be like, oh, a new hero.
Yeah.
Like, people know Spider-Man, but people don't know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and people don't really know Peter Parker in general, because the whole world no longer knows Peter Parker. So the repercussions are more towards Peter Parker than they are for Spider-Man himself.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That's why his friends don't know him.
Yeah.
So he just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's going to get a little weird and wonky that they're going to have to explain it, because, like, if people don't know Peter Parker, some of the Avengers who know Peter Parker as Spider-Man, it might just get a little weird where they're going to have to explain it of, like, how much people retained of Spider-Man. Is it just, like, that he exists? Do they forget the actions he took, but people generally know that, like, okay, Spider-Man's, like, a hero who exists? Or what? So that's going to have to be worked out a little bit, because one of the things was, like, Doctor Strange saying goodbye to Peter.
Because he probably knows he won't remember him.
Yeah.
Probably remembers what will happen up to that point. Like, he'll know that Spider-Man was in Infinity War and Endgame, but he won't know that was Peter Parker.
Yeah, so it's going to be a little weird there. But because the White focuses so heavily on Peter Parker, I think the next movie, at least the next solo film, has to focus on Peter Parker. I think it's him trying to rebuild his life, him now dealing with this world that he's leaned so heavily on his mentors, heavily on his friends, and now he's doing it alone.
Yeah.
I think that could be a very heavy arc for him.
Opportunity for growth, for
and
sure.
I think that's also where he can meet, like, a Black Cat or somebody who's, like, kind of tests his morality a little bit, and kind of just see how he reacts. I think that Peter is going to have some challenges in that way, but I don't really hope that they immediately reverse it. I think you have to they're going to reverse it by, was it Secret Wars?
So you do think they'll reverse it?
Something's gonna happen. It may not be fully reversed. Something's gonna happen where they start retaining, what everybody knew about him by. Well, I guess it would be the Kang Dynasty, but whatever they're calling Avengers 5 now. I think they have to, or else it's just too weird. Unless they make it a major plot point.
Well, I was thinking, because it's going to be, completely opposite of kind of what you're saying. I don't think they ever reverse it. I was thinking, like, we have to bring Miles in at some point, right? So I was thinking the next movie, Peter, like you said, try to make it about Peter, try to have him find his footing. But, I mean, MJ's still in the world and Ned's still in the world. And, and there was the scene where he doesn't really want to interfere with in their lives. I would love something that I was just, like, theorizing is have a Miles show up. I don't know how. Like, start fighting crimes in the city, which I don't know how that works because you said Spider-Man still exists. But somehow... Wait, so if Spider-Man still exists, is it still Tom Holland in the Spider-Man role? Yeah. It is him, right?
Yeah.
So I would love for Miles to show up and Spider-Man begin to think, like, I feel like this kid just does it so much better than I do. I want him to be the new Spider-Man and start to like let him take the stage, sort of a thing. And I would also love a subplot of him trying to reunite with MJ, but not having anything before. Like, so he has to do it all from scratch, and he's not Spider-Man, which I think was like a big part of like them initially getting interested. I just think those would be two plots that I would really be emotionally attached to.
So we have all that going on. I know there's also rumor. Again, rumor mill of Twitter. So take it for what it's worth. Take Twitter for what it's worth. That Ned is going to become Hobgoblin. I thought that was going to happen in No Way Home, to be honest.
I just can't see him as a villain. I'm sorry.
I mean, I know
it's a
the rumor
thing, but
came because people thought that like he got super, like Jacob got really skinny and buff, and it was like, oh, he's playing Hobgoblin. He's getting ready to play a villain. He just did it, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it was for a role. I think he just did it for himself. So that's kind of where the rumor came from last time. I know there's it's starting up again.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I don't know. He just kind of plays the goofy friend.
Yeah, I can't take him. I don't know if I could take him seriously, even if. I mean, I feel like I'd have to be blown away by his acting ability, probably for me to be captivated by it. But also, I don't know if I could take it seriously with somebody named Hobgoblin. I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I do think they should do a Sinister Six, build up. How they do it, I don't know. It's so messy.
Yeah, and I mean, who do they have a couple ready. They have the Scorpion. We already talked about Sony's, but Marvel, they'll have Scorpion, Vulture.
Rhino was teased at the end of Amazing Spider-Man? Right?
But in the MCU, I don't think he's really...
He's not in it, but they haven't used him yet.
Yeah, they have Mysterio already established. He's
in a prison somewhere, right?
You have Green Goblin, kind of. You have Green Goblin, and you have... I guess you have Electro and Doc Ock and Lizard.
Sandman.
So, something I saw proposed with specifically Doc Ock and Green Goblin is that the No Way Home fight and everything with Green Goblin and Doc Ock that was heavily publicized. The MCU has a lot of cameras on it, especially with J. Jonah Jameson's InfoWars parody.
Yeah.
So the suggestion was that somebody saw those two characters and they were inspired by them, and now they take on their persona in the MCU and they become the MCU. So they were like, I saw everything that Green Goblin did. I'm going to take after Green Goblin.
And make it better.
And that's mine, and that's my Doc Ock. I think that's how you could add those two. So then you would have Doc Ock, you would have Green Goblin, Mysterio, Scorpion, Vulture, and then you just have to add one more. Love for it to be Venom.
Yeah.
Love for it to be Venom. I don't think it's going to be Venom.
That's a tough team. You,
I think, can choose a lot there. The other option is maybe someone's only inspired by Doc Ock. You add Hobgoblin in instead of Green Goblin, and then you still have the loose one, which is Venom. You could do Sandman, Lizard. I don't know if they really want to rehash those, but
yeah, because I don't know about Lizard. I really love Sandman personally, but I do think you got to get Venom in there somewhere. My only thing is, I feel I can't not see backlash against recasting of Doc Ock and Green Goblin, because I feel like those two characters have become very solidified in their role. So it'd be tough to get someone new to come in, kind of like Hugh Jackman and RDJ sort of a thing. It's not to that level, but they've definitely that guy is Doc Ock and that guy is Green Goblin.
And I think it's a little harder for them because they already brought them back. I think if they had never brought them back in No Way Home, they could have been like, okay, this is something entirely different.
Yeah.
But a lot of people said that William Dafoe's best performance as Green Goblin was in No Way Home.
I can 100% see that. He's also really good in the Tobey Spider-Man movies, but I mean, that two-faced aspect of it was brilliant.
So, another thing that we haven't really talked about yet is the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man animated series, which also kind of involves Sony.
Is that a release already?
So it hasn't been released.
Uh-huh.
And I'm blanking. I don't know if you can look it up.
Yeah, let me see.
But I'm blanking on whether or not it's in the MCU or not. Because it switched. It was either not going to be in the MCU and now it's supposed to be in the MCU.
Yeah.
Or it was supposed to be in the MCU and now it's not canon. Now it's
That's messy.
It's one or the other and I don't remember.
It is part of the MCU franchise, but it takes place in an alternate universe.
Okay,
so it's out November of this year.
Okay, so they're kind of taking the cop-out role. It's kind of
anytime
saying,
you do alternate universe, go ahead, do whatever you want, kill whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
The only way I can see this being this is a wonky idea. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if they introduce this Spider-Man as an alternate universe Spider-Man,
this Friendly Neighborhood animated one,
and Marvel, the problem. Okay, we're getting off track a little bit. The problem with the upcoming Secret Wars movie is that there is no separate universe that I care about. And part of Secret Wars is that I should be conflicted in what side I'm rooting for. Am I rooting for the MCU 616 universe? Sorry, 199.
Or are they going to build up the mutant universe? Yeah. And then that's going to be the other one.
Yeah, or the one that we saw in like the Marvels. Like I'm assuming that could be the Secret Wars one where
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have those two. Like, I need to be able to root for both equally. But right now, if you told me Secret Wars is tomorrow, I do not care what happens to that other universe at all.
If you told me that, I have a feeling it's going to be very multiverse of madness. Like, we're going to crash through these other multiverses, and it's going to be like, oh, hey, fun cameo, look at this different universe, and then we keep going. But no emotional connection. Very similar to the Illuminati in Multiverse of Madness. Kill them off. I mean... this is also off tangent, but the Reed Richards thing with John Krasinski totally felt like Quicksilver in WandaVision.
Yeah.
Like, why are you going to do the best fan cast, like the best one, like that everyone's been asking for, and then just kill him off and it doesn't matter?
Yeah.
I just don't understand that.
I don't really care about John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, so it didn't bother me, but
it's fine. I thought he could have been a good one, but obviously it was just for a silly cameo.
But if you're getting Doctor Doom or whoever it's going to end up being, not probably Kang anymore, but if you're going to smash these two universes together and be like, we have to choose a universe to survive,
make it hard.
Make it a hard decision for the audience. So why I said this is maybe a little crazy and something they probably won't do is if they expand out that universe in animation. Because while animation takes a long time to do well, I think it's more feasible for Marvel to do that, especially with how good Marvel animation has been lately.
Yeah.
To do that and flesh out a second world rather than trying to do it in live action.
So you saying do an animated world and then bring them to live action?
Yes. Like the live action story is the story of this other universe, but when we see them in Secret Wars, it's not like a Roger Rabbit. Like half the Avengers are animated, but it's like they're in live action.
Yeah.
It's wonky, but I think I think part of not so much Secret Wars, but Secret Invasion, I guess a little bit of Secret Wars too, is like you can't tell who's who, and it's like, there weren't really a lot of there's two of the same character. It was more like, okay, we have Iron Man from this universe and we have T'Challa from this universe, and so there was a lot of different characters that just came from different universes.
Yeah.
But I think if the MCU needs to save a little bit of money in the number of characters they have, it could be a little bit of we have a Spider-Man in this universe, and this is the animated Spider-Man that you saw in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and it's also played by Tom Holland. I don't think they're going to do that because I think it gets really messy for audiences to be able to translate in their mind the animated universe to live action.
And I also just feel that animated is, for some reason, harder for people to just like, Oh, it's not like Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's going to be harder for me to watch the animated one. I don't know why that is, but I'm not even saying there's evidence to support me. I'm just speaking. I don't feel like the general population gravitates more towards the animated shows.
I think a lot of people are still in the mindset that animation is for children. That's why a lot of people didn't see X-Men 97, but
Big mistake.
I think that a big maybe chance for Marvel to change that is Marvel Zombies. Again, we're getting off on tangents, but Marvel Zombies I think could
Spider-Man hasn't been mentioned in the last 10 minutes.
But all that to be said, they need to flesh out the other universe. They can do it with Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. I think Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is a good opportunity, and that's all I really have to say about that.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. It's just supposed to be like his high school days, like
yes,
right?
but
wait, is it the same one as the freshman year? Wasn't there a freshman year one? Or is this the same one?
It's
or did they get a new?
It's
title?
the same. I think they gave it a new title.
I thought it was like Spider-Man freshman year.
It is Spider-Man freshman year. I think it's supposed to be like 4 seasons going through the 4 years.
Okay.
There are some MCU actors in it. Charlie Cox, Daredevil is supposed to be in it, and Charlie Cox reprised his role. But he also said he recorded the voice for it in like 2020, so it's been a while. So we'll see what they do there. So I think the last thing to talk about before we wrap up is we've talked about what we wanted for the Marvel Universe, MCU Spider-Man.
How do we fix the other one?
What do we think? You seem so sad. What do we hope for and what do we expect from Sony?
I'm so sad because I hate these universes that have potential. Cough, cough, DC Universe. And it just falls flat. And I just like want to cower in my bedroom because I'm like, I have no idea what you guys do. I've said that so many times, and I'm just like, I don't know what you guys do. You can't really do like a soft reboot because then that's too weird. You have too much behind it. Hard reboot is almost as hard just because it's like, okay, you just ignore completely everything before. It's like, I mean, the DC universe decided to just end it. Like, we were just trying to like put too many things together. But, I mean, Sony has fantastic works into the Spider-Verse, and they have not so good works. And
Madam Web.
And I think what these universes just lack is a lack of a universe. They're not coming into other stories super well. They'll have oh, hey, here's this little poster to just let you know we're in the same universe. We're not going to reference anybody ever again. You don't really have any team up movies. None of that yet. I mean, I guess it's good because they're following more of the MCU approach, which is give the solo films time to like marinate before you do the big team up. But I just don't feel there's a lot of universe building going on.
Sony, don't be ashamed to admit when you have lost.
Yeah.
I think that is the first step. What I think Sony should do
is just give it to Marvel.
I mean, that's 1A, but also conglomerates and monopolies probably aren't the best for the future.
Yeah.
Would love it for cinematic storytelling. Maybe not the best business practice, but who?
Oh, as long as we're doing this, Universal, I'm looking at you. Go ahead and give Marvel the Hulk because we need a solo film. Anyway,
so I think let there be carnage. It's not going to do it. Like, this isn't going to be the case because you have Kraven coming out. But let Venom, I keep saying let there be carnage. Venom the Last Dance be the last dance of the Sony cinematic universe. You have Kraven ready to go. You need to recoup some of your money. So I guess that will be the technical last movie in the Sony universe.
Let it be your Dark Phoenix, if you will.
Yeah. But end it there. And just, if you want to keep the rights, which I know you do, because it's a lot of money, just start over. And don't start over with Morbius or these random characters
that nobody really knows or cares about too much.
Start over and flush out your plethora of spider people. You have used them in the Spider-Verse. You can make a Ben Reilly film. You can make a Spider-Gwen film. You can make a Miles Morales film. you can make a Spider Noir film. Flush out these other Spider characters and build up to a live-action Spider-Verse if you want to make a lot of money.
Yeah. Go ahead and wrap up the animated one because that's fantastic.
Yes. But take the knowledge and the success of your animated Spider-Verse movie and turn it to live action. Flush out your roster of Spider people. That's really what the people care about, is the Spider people. The side characters, the Venom, yes, people love Venom. You can probably do another trilogy of Venom with a different actor if you really want to for this universe. But people don't really care about a Kraven solo movie. People don't really care about a Madam Web solo movie. What the people care about is their connection in their fights with the Spider people.
They just want a movie where Spider-Man beats them up.
Let them get beat up. And let the Spider-Verse come to live action, and I think you have a success. Acknowledge that you have powerhouse characters that are Spider people. Don't try to do the Guardians of the Galaxy route, or at the time when the MCU started, the Iron Man route of making irrelevant characters relevant. Because at this point, you haven't had success doing that. So just lean on the IP that you have held hostage.
And maybe Marvel made it look too easy, making irrelevant characters relevant.
Yes.
Maybe that's part of it. But I'm a little bit more brutal. I say just end it and give it all to Marvel. Joe talks about Monopoly, but we can't act like Marvel doesn't own most of the superheroes already. I mean, who else is out there? Spider-Man's with Sony, Hulk is with Universal.
And then you have DC.
Then you have DC.
I guess you technically have the Invincible universe that's owned by Amazon. You have The Boys, also owned by Amazon, but that's just a parody of existing MCU characters.
I think they just want Hulk and... But I think Hulk's rights are actually coming to an end, which is why I think they're stalling for a solo Hulk film. So it will just be Spider-Man at that point. And yeah, like Joe said, just let it go. It's time for Marvel to just be able to have full reign. Sony's not going to do that, though.
Yeah. Anyways, now that we've ruined our opportunity of ever being invited to a Sony Pictures premiere,
we will still go. We will still go after everything we said.
That's, I think, a good place to wrap up. The future of Spider-Man, I think, is still bright, despite what we said.
Yes. Tom Holland still wants to keep going. He'll probably still look young for the next 20 years.
Yeah, he does still look like a teenager. He's kind of finally reaching adulthood, even though he's well into it.
Yeah, he's just got to keep shaving his face and cutting his hair.
So, to wrap up, the future of this podcast also looking bright.
It is.
So, it's no secret that this episode is late. It's also no secret that you've been staring at something a little different this time.
We are not on a couch.
We are not on a couch. We have a table. We have some mugs. We have a comic book. We have a backdrop. All of this is new, and it's part of a revamping and transition. We
signed a deal with Marvel.
We signed a deal with Marvel, not Sony. That's why we've been telling them. This is propaganda. But we have decided to kind of let these first 4 episodes, this first month of the podcast, serve a little bit as a prologue to what the podcast is going to become. And in addition to kind of the visual changes, I'm sure we'll be making more adjustments and revamping, and quality will get better as it goes on. But this is kind of the new format in terms of visual. But we're also going to change a new format in terms of what we talk about.
Yep.
So we are going to be starting a more or less Marvel rewatch, where we're going to go through every MCU movie and eventually probably every MCU show and like spin-offs. So that includes like the holiday special and Werewolf by Night and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And we are going to be having a rating system for each movie, where we decide whether or not we think a movie is basically A-list, top tier. We're going to have to come up with some catchy name for it.
Yeah.
But we will have categories that we discuss, like the character development, the connection to the wider MCU, the action scenes, the music, and we will be giving it a pass or fail. And if it passes a certain amount of categories, it will reach the highly esteemed status of being that A-list, top tier, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah.
So, of course, we are going to be starting with Iron Man. We will be having our scorecards. The podcast will then become segmented into each of those categories where we will talk about it. If we agree, it'll be pretty easy. But if we disagree, we'll have to debate and come to a consensus on whether or not it passes that category. And we will see which movies pass, which movies fail. And at the end, we'll see who truly is the best of Marvel.
Yeah, maybe it will surprise us. We'll see. I have a feeling Infinity War and Endgame will probably be there, but I don't know. Maybe it will change along the way. We have a long journey through many movies.
Yes. So this will be a deviation from what we've been talking about. We will still have kind of bonus episodes per se of talking about other things, especially when new MCU projects come out. So like Deadpool and Wolverine will be our kind of first one where we'll take a break for a week and put out a bonus episode that we
have to talk about it.
We have to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine. We'll be kind of reacting to that and stuff like that. So we will have one-off kind of breaks. Maybe it'll be at the end of a phase or something. We still have to work that out. But more or less for the next 6 or so months, we will be going through every MCU movie to discuss.
Yep, we're probably going to agree on a lot. We're probably going to disagree on a lot, which will be some of the more interesting parts of the episodes. There's a lot to go through for sure. But I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about all these movies, kind of throw our memories and our first impressions with them, and get into that scoring system. So the first episode of that series will be debuting on a new day. So we've been on Tuesdays, I guess, for 3 weeks. This one is coming out on a glorious Friday. Yep.
And so next time we will be debuting on Wednesdays, and we'll move to Wednesdays kind of more or less permanently. Kind of maybe some exceptions, again, with like Deadpool and Wolverine bonus episodes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But more or less we will keep to the Wednesday timelines. And I think besides that, it's just going to be an exciting time, an exciting path forward for a good, fun passion project.
Yeah, lots of... it will be very consistent because we kind of have an idea of what we're doing going forward. Mm-hmm. And we'll have the same format. It's not going to kind of be like these like different random topics that just relate to Marvel. So basically the MCU journey begins.
Yes. So expect that coming soon.
Yep.
But otherwise, that has been another episode of Live from Knowhere. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We will see you next time. Don't forget to comment what you think about MCU Spider-Man and Sonyverse.
Don't comment, Sony. Don't comment. Unless you want to.
And subscribe. Thanks.
Thank you.